Hey everyone, it's time to preview round 16 of the 2025 NRL season. Lots to go through in this video. We're going to review round 15, preview all the games and the betting trends for round 16. I'm going to share with you how I'm approaching betting on these games. And we're also going to look at the State of Origin Game 2, which is being played tonight. I've already posted my bet for the game and a members-only preview in the best bets. That was all posted yesterday. But I want to run through some things that you can look at when it comes to researching and analyzing the State of Origin game as well, in case you haven't already placed your bets on it. And some of these principles are ones you can apply to generally betting on the NRL as well. First, let's break down the 5 games from round number 15. Back in round 12, the last round that was affected by State of Origin, all 5 underdogs won. When we looked at the games going into round 15, it was very difficult to see a similar situation happening again. And obviously that wasn't the case. 4 of the 5 favourites won. The only underdog to win on the weekend was the Titans, beating the Seagulls at home 28 points to 8. The Seagulls were the second biggest favourite of the round. The Sharks were the biggest favourite in their game against the Dragons. Underdogs, though, did cover the spread in 4 of the 5 games. The Dolphins against the Cowboys, winning 58-4, were the only favourite to win the game and also cover the spread. The other 3 games that the favourites won, all underdogs covered the spread in those. The Dragons just covered against the Sharks. The Rabbitohs got that late try to cover against the Bulldogs, and Knights led, or it was a close game for the most part, against the Roosters. The Roosters got that late try when it was grounded by the forearm. It was a bit of a controversial one for the Roosters to get over the line and win that game. So far this season, underdogs still performing really well. They've covered the spread in 64 games so far. The favourites have only covered in 49. This weekend, home teams only won 2 of the 5 games, but the home teams covered 3 of the 5. So far this season, home teams are 63-50 against the spread. The Sharks won at home but didn't cover the spread. The Knights lost their game but covered versus the Roosters, and the Rabbitohs lost but covered against the Bulldogs. So that was where the difference came from. You might have noticed we've spoken about underdogs covering, home teams covering at high rates this season. That means home underdogs are 31-17 against the spread. There's been 48 games with away favourite, and the home underdog has covered 31 of those games. The Raiders and the Warriors are both 3-0 as a home underdog against the spread, and the Dolphins and West Tigers are 3-1 as a home underdog overall this season. Total points betting this weekend, 3 games went under, 2 went over. Overall in the season, unders still going strong, 62-51. So that's a look back at last round. Overall is a fairly predictable round in terms of which teams were going to win each game. The Seagulls were definitely like the major letdown team with their performance, losing by 20 points against the undermanned Titan side. It's a bit of an issue going forward there for Manly. I saw an article after the weekend saying that every Manly player was having a 7-minute meeting with the coaching staff, and then those players who weren't happy about having to do that. I think there's a lot of issues going on down at Manly at the moment. It's a tough outlook for them through the rest of the season. Looking ahead now to round number 16. The first game is on Friday night. So we have 7 games this weekend. Keep in mind, obviously, everyone who's playing in the State of Origin, that game is over in Perth. So any players who back up will need to travel back other than the players. So Tabuai Fido playing for the Dolphins and Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Those players, their teams are both playing in Perth on the Saturday. Every other team will need to travel their players back if they are to back up. So just the 1 game on the Friday night, 3 on Saturday, and then 3 on Sunday. First game we'll look at West Tigers versus the Raiders at 8 p.m. on Friday night. The Raiders are favourites here. They are $1.35. minus 9.5 point favourites, and the total is 46.5. For the Raiders and Tigers, this game being in Sydney on the Friday night, 48 hours after State of Origin. If the key factor for the Tigers, and probably the most important factor for this game, is whether Jerome Luai backs up. Right now he's listed as halfback for the Tigers and expected to play, but wouldn't be surprised if there is changes, but it's going to be interesting to see how that does play out. Either way, he's definitely not going to be 100% in this game. Hudson Young is the one for the Raiders, who is the key factor backing up from Origin. The Raiders can cover without him a lot more than the Tigers can cover without Luai, though you definitely want to pay attention to the lineups for majority of the games this weekend. They met twice last season. The Raiders won the first encounter 32-12, and then the Tigers won in round 16 against them 48 points to 24 as $2.55 underdogs. That was the first game the Tigers have won against the Raiders in their last 9 meetings. So the Raiders had won 8 straight leading into that round 16 match. Raiders have also won 7 of the past 8 away games against the Tigers. Definitely expect them to be winning this game. Both teams had the bye leading into this game. Raiders have won 4 straight. They beat the Rabbitohs on the Sunday afternoon prior to their bye. And then for the West Tigers, they come into this match losing 4 straight with losses against the Panthers and Cowboys over their past couple of games. And aside from the 64-0 blowout in round 10 against the Storm, the Tigers have been keeping their games fairly close. So across their last 6 games overall, 5 of them have been decided by 10 or less. They've had 2 wins by 2 or 6 points, and then they've had the 3 losses by 2 by 4 and 1 by 10 points. They've failed to lead at halftime in their last 4 games, and that concerns me a little bit. As this Raiders side gets on top early, they're going to be very hard to run down. If Luai doesn't play, then Raiders should win and should win very comfortably. If he does play, then the Tigers are a small chance of keeping it close. However, at the end of the day, there's just such a big discrepancy between these two sides in terms of attack and defense. The Raiders are clearly the stronger side in both of those areas. Expect them to keep their form going. They've only lost 1 of their last 10 games, which was against the Bulldogs, who sit on top of the ladder, and I think they'll keep that going. The question is obviously how much do they win this game by? If they really show up and want to make a statement, they can win this game easily by the 10 or more points, but I do think it's about the Raiders are looking at a margin here around the 12 to 14 points is what I'm expecting the final margin to be. In terms of the total points line at 46.5, 8 of the past 10 between these two sides have gone under, though Raiders, 4 of their last 5 have gone over, and the Tigers, 3 of their last 5 have gone over. So you have different trends going into this game. The matchup historically has been favoring unders, but these two teams are both being oversized so far this season. Personally, I make a fair total 47.5, so I have a slight lean towards the over. The first game on Saturday, the Warriors against the Panthers over in New Zealand. Another game with both sides off the bye. The Warriors are open to $1.30 favourites, minus 12.5, and the total is 44.5. Team changes for this game. Kurt Capewell not expected to back up from Origin for the Warriors. And then also none of the Panthers players are travelling over from Origin to play in New Zealand for this game. So you have a very similar lineups to what you would see in a game prior to Origin. And with that in mind, the Warriors should be winning and reverse their historical trend against the Panthers. Penrith have won 8 of the past 9. They've won 5 of the past 6 away games against the Warriors, and they've covered 4 of the past 6. Though last season they only met once, and the Warriors beat them in that game 22-20 as $5.50 underdogs. It's really crazy going back and looking at the previous meetings and what the odds were for this matchup. Because back in 2022, the Panthers were 32.5 point favorites against them. They were $1.01 and covered the spread. Earlier that season, they were $1.02, 28.5 point favorites, and won 40-6. So huge reversal in the space of 3 seasons to see the Warriors at $1.30, and I expect they're going to be even shorter once that team news comes through. They'll probably come in a little bit more into the 120s. But Warriors at home here. They've won 7 of their past 8 games. Prior to the bye, they had their biggest win of the season, beating the Sharks 40-10, 30-point margin. They outscored them 28-0 in the second half. They should be full of confidence. They haven't trailed at halftime since all the way back in round 6 against the Melbourne Storm. They've covered the spread in 6 of their past 8 games. And I think at home here, they have a significant advantage against an undermanned Panthers side. Penrith have started to turn their season around. They're moving themselves in contention for the top 8. They've won their last 2 against the Tigers and Eels. But their last 3 games have all been against sides in that bottom 4. And whilst they did lose to the Knights when they're undermanned, I don't want to give too much credit to wins over the Tigers and Eels. I want to see them how they perform Obviously, this game now isn't going to matter as much, but following this, they'll play the Bulldogs, and that's going to be the key measuring stick for the Panthers this season. So, can see why they're not taking these players up in this situation and saving them for the game against the Bulldogs in the following week. Expect the Warriors to win and win comfortably. Penrith still have a long way to go, and obviously being undermanned, I think is pretty straightforward. The total is 44.5 between these two sides. 8 of the past 9 head-to-head have gone under. Panthers in recent times have been a big underside. Their last 3 games have gone under. 8 of their last 10 as well have gone under the total. And for the Warriors, 3 of their past 5 have gone under, but their last 2 games against the Rabbitohs and Sharks have both gone over. That's though because the Warriors have scored season highs 40 and 36 points across their last 2 games. That attacking strength, if that continues, they should comfortably take care. Their defensive numbers are really good. They're better than Penrith, and with their attacking numbers on the rise, it's positive signs ahead for the Warriors. In terms of a total, if it goes over, it's going to need to be the Panthers are going to need to find around 12 to 16 points, which I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Expect the Warriors to score the high 20s, low 30s once again, but a slight lean towards the under at the current number. I think it's 1 to 2 points too high with an undermanned Panther side. Then we have the Dolphins versus the Knights. The Dolphins, $1.31, minus 9.5, and the total is 47.5. Remember, this game is being played over in Perth. These sides have previously had a game at Optus Stadium. It was back in round 23 in 2023, and the Knights won that game 30-28. They've now won the last 4 against the Dolphins. Redcliffe won the very first encounter 36-20 as favourites, but since then Newcastle have won all 4 games. Do expect Tabuai Fido and Kalen Ponga both to back up for their sides in this game. So with that in mind, I think the Dolphins, regardless, should be too strong. I think these first 3 games this weekend are all pretty straightforward. Probably the first 4, to be honest. We'll get to that one in a second. But the Dolphins, I would say the most informed side in the competition right now. Started with the win over the Bulldogs prior to their bye when they beat the Bulldogs 44 points to 8. Then they beat the Dragons 56-6, and then they beat the Cowboys up in Townsville 58-4. So they've only conceded 18 points across their past 3 games, and they've scored 158. That's massive numbers. And yes, like you could say the Cowboys and Dragons not really in form, but their last 3 games, when they've played these 3 teams, all of those oppositions have been inside the top 8 going into that game. The Bulldogs were first on the ladder, the Dragons were 8th going into that round 14 game, and the Cowboys were 6th going into that game last weekend. So it's not like they've been versing like the bottom 3 teams on the ladder and beating them by 40, 50 points. They've been doing it against fellow top 8 opposition. I think that they're going up against the number 2 defensive side. However, they're also ranked the number 2 defensive side. Now, both these teams are equally conceding 18.7 points a game. Knights, though, do give up the least number of tries, just slightly less than the Dolphins. But in terms of points for, they're at polar opposites. Dolphins ranked number 2, Knights ranked 17th in points scored. The Dolphins just should have way too many points here for a Knights side. That is a little bit inconsistent. They either score 1 try or they score 4 tries over the past 4 to 5 weeks. This is a game where I think they're going to struggle to score. Dolphins haven't conceded over 16 points in their past 5 games. Even if the Knights get to 16 or 18 or 20 points here and have a really good game by their standards, it's not going to be enough for them to beat the Dolphins. So pretty confident Redcliffe will keep their run going and win this game and win it comfortably. The last game on Saturday is the Rabbitohs against the Melbourne Storm. The Storm, $1.35 favourites off the bye and 10.5 point favourites, and the total is 48.5. And the Rabbitohs come into this off the loss on Sunday night against the Bulldogs. The Storm have a significant rest advantage here. And firstly, for the Rabbitohs, their season definitely starting to really slip away here. They've lost 3 straight, and they've also lost 7 of their past 9 games. And it doesn't get any easier. They face the Storm here, then they'll play the Dolphins, and the game against the Seagulls right now looks like a winnable game. But then following that, they have the Panthers, Sharks, Broncos as the following 3 games after their next bye. So I think the decline of the season after winning 4 of their first 5 games to South Sydney is definitely going to continue. Lineups for this game are obviously going to be really important. Latrell Mitchell is named for the Rabbitohs at fullback, so right now is expected to play. Cody Walker is in the reserve, so he's questionable to play. Colin Matangi also listed in the reserves. For the Melbourne Storm, Cameron Munster is named in the halves, also named in the lineup as well in the front row. Loiero as in the lock position. Everything for Melbourne right now looks like they're going to this game at near enough to full strength. Xavier Coates also in the team. So going into after game 1, they did end up resting players, so we'll see how they approach this game being on the road. But the Storm have won 11 of the past 13 versus South Sydney. Earlier this season, they met in round 8. The Storm were $1.18 favourites. They only won the game by 8 points. So it didn't end up being a major blowout or anything like that. It was played in fine conditions on a Friday night, and Storm got the job done, but it wasn't hugely impressive. But prior to that, last season, they won 28-16 and 54-20 in the 2 games. The game in Sydney, they won by 12 points as $1.12. So I really like the $1.35 that they're offering here. Rabbitohs have a tendency to hang around in games. They generally haven't. They kept the meetings against the Bulldogs and Warriors close to that 6-point margin, but then lost by 24 against the Raiders. It's been one extreme or the other. They lose by 24 plus, or they only lose by a try or so. With the Melbourne Storm, if they're on, they can definitely win this game by the 20 plus. So I'd lean towards them covering the handicap, particularly considering the Rabbitohs have covered 5 of the past 7 versus the Storm. We expect there to be a little bit of a differential. And going back to round 23 last season, this handicap for this same matchup was minus 14.5, and now we're only having to lay 10.5 points. Not sure if I will bet the handicap right now, but I expect the Storm to win this game comfortably. The total at 48.5, 6 of the past 7 head-to-head have gone under the total. Right now, I make a fair total for this game, 47.5, so it's a slight lean towards the under. The Rabbitohs are the big underside. So far this season, they've only had 2 games go over, so they're 12-2 to the under. And for the Melbourne Storm, they're on the other side of it. 3 of their last 4 games have gone over. Obviously, this total will come down to Melbourne's scoring and how many points they run up. So if you like the over, I'd probably more so push you towards playing the Storms over. Melbourne on the road this season haven't been super impressive, and I think there'll be a focus here to get some road form going, and that'll be one of their KPIs for this game. It's fine beating up on teams at home, but at the end of the day, once it gets to finals, they're going to have to win in Sydney and play their best football in Sydney. Now, in the second half of the season, I think that'll be something that this team is focusing on. The first game on Sunday, the Broncos off the bye against the Sharks, who played on the Thursday night last week. So they've had 10 days rest compared to the Broncos 15. So the bye doesn't super favour the Broncos in this situation compared to what the Storm's bye favours against the Rabbitohs, who are on a 6-day turnaround from their game last week. That's something you want to pay attention to, is looking at how many days in between games for teams, because sometimes you can get significant rest advantages and teams are able to generate an edge off of that. But for this game, Broncos are favourites. They're $1.47, 4.5 point favourites, and the total is 48.5. Last season, they just met on one occasion. It was at Suncorp Stadium, and the Sharks won 22 points to 12 as $2.60 underdogs. We basically have the exact same prices for this game, so bookies have put up virtually the same odds as last season. These sides have split the past 6 meetings, 3 wins each. They're basically going win-loss against each other. Broncos, though, have won 5 of the past 7 games at home against the Sharks, just losing that most recent encounter, though. Also, this matchup has a history of being close. The past 7 have been decided by 1 to 10 points. Sharks are unimpacted by Origin, so no issues there. They do lose Mawini Hiroti now, so also without Kale Iro. They do get Sia Talakai coming into the side and playing in that center position. Outside of that, they're at full strength, so couldn't be better positioned going into this game. Right now, Broncos have named all their Origin players to start. Payne Haas, Paddy Carrigan are both in the lineup and expected to play for the Broncos as the main 2. They're not majorly affected by Origin as we've seen in previous years. This is a really interesting game. Broncos have broke a 4-game losing and non-cover streak with their win prior to the bye against the Titans, winning that game 44-14, and the Titans have come out and won by 20 points against the Seagulls following that to frank the form, as much as Manly aren't playing well. But prior to that, the one concern I have with the Broncos, that 4-game losing streak that they had, and also you go back to the losses against the Warriors and Roosters just prior to that, but their last 5 games overall have all been against sides outside the top 8. They lost 4 straight and then beat the side on the bottom of the ladder who concede the most points. So I have reservations of the Broncos running in 44 points against one of the side that was on the bottom of the ladder. And also, as much as the Titans did come out and beat the Seagulls the following week, the Broncos, prior to their game against the Titans, lost 34-6 against the Seagulls down in Sydney. I don't think that form really credits you with being an $1.40 favourites. I do think Broncos are unders in this game. Sharks have also been a little bit inconsistent. Potentially did turn a corner in the second half against the Dragons. They are down 18-4 at halftime, but scored 26 unanswered points to win 30-18 in the end after losing to the Warriors and Roosters, either side of their byes. They've failed to cover their last 3 games, but I definitely give them a strong shot. If Sharks are plus 6.5 for this game, that would definitely be a bet. Right now, I'm somewhat in between taking the Sharks at the plus 4.5 or looking at either team to win. So at a try bet, either team to win by 1-10, 1-12. Sharks generally don't win games in blowouts. Their last 4 wins, only one of them has been by more than 12 points. And the Broncos have had quite a lot of games this season, both win and loss being decided by 1 to 2 tries. So one of those 2 options is probably how I'm looking at playing this game. The other thing to consider is the Broncos in day matches. This will just be their 3rd day match so far this season. They previously lost to the Panthers 32-8 in a home day game, and also lost to the Dragons 30-26 as favourites in a day game. So both losses as favourites, their numbers drop off significantly. If you have the NRL bet finders, you'll be able to see their statistical differences in terms of how they perform in day games to night games so far this season, and it's polar opposites both in attack and defence. That definitely concerns me there for the Broncos playing in day matches, where the Sharks this year have won 5 of their 6 day games and actually play a lot better in day matches than they do in night games. So there's some strong edges there for the Sharks. I think they're probably the best underdog of the round right now, and I'm pretty confident in that. The total is 48.5. 8 of the past 10 between the Broncos and Sharks have gone under. 5 of their last 6 meetings at Suncorp have also gone under. Broncos, 3 of their last 5 have gone under. Not a super strong trend. Sharks, their last 4 games have gone over. Right now, I make a fair total for this game, assuming it's fine conditions, which is expected to be at 47.5. So this is another game where I feel like the total is pretty much spot on. Whenever it's only 1 to 2 points at most from the total I expect, it's generally not one that I want to play into too much, or I'll need to do further researching closer to game time. The next game on Sunday is the Roosters against the Cowboys. Roosters $1.47 favourites, minus 6.5, and the total is 49.5. These sides only met once last season. The Cowboys won that game 18-16 as $6 underdogs. They also won the 2023 meeting in round 10, 20-6 as $4.25 underdogs. Wins to the Cowboys in the last 2 encounters, both as $4.25 plus underdogs. Roosters did win the 5 games prior to those last 2 encounters though. Once again, lineups, all Origin players expected to back up. Dominic Young is out for the Roosters, now playing with the Knights, so keeping that in your records. Victor Radley out injured last week, but all Origin players are named in the current starting 17s. So definitely, like the Sunday games, generally players are fine to back up, but we do have a tricky situation with the game being in Perth. Roosters somehow managed to get the win last week against the Knights on Saturday in a game that was played in wet conditions. It was low scoring, but they managed to get themselves over the line. They've won 4 of their past 6 games. The losses against the Raiders and Bulldogs, both by 2 and 4 points. They're playing really well. They're consistently leading games at halftime. They didn't against the Knights, but prior to that had led at halftime in the 5 games prior. And the Cowboys are one of the worst first half teams this season. They've only led at halftime once in their past 7 matches. They've lost their last 2 by 54 against the Dolphins and 24 against the Melbourne Storm. Roosters will be looking at this game as it's perfect for them to get an important win going into the bye and set themselves up for the run home. Early on this season, the Roosters were one of the worst defensive sides, but they've slowly turned that around. They've moved up. They're now ranked 12th in terms of points conceded. Haven't conceded over 26 points in any of their last 6 games, so they've been able to avoid blowout performances. And also the times that they did concede 26 was against the Raiders, Bulldogs and Dolphins, are 3 of the best attacking sides in the competition. Think the Cowboys, they're ranked in the bottom half. They're ranked 11th in points scored and have now fallen to 16th in points conceded at 29.5 per game, conceding 58, 38, 28, 24, 30 and 30 across their past 5 games. The Seagulls were the only team not to score 28 or more points against them. The Tigers also got 28. Roosters should have enough attack in them here to win this game against the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys defense is going to be able to stop them. And Roosters, this is at the end of the day, like, there's still plenty of time to go in the season, but where the Roosters are currently at, this is an important game that I don't think they want to drop or can really afford to drop. In their run home following their next bye after this game, they have the Sharks, they have the Storm twice, the Dolphins and the Bulldogs during that period. So a lot of tough games, and at this point of the season, they can't afford to drop games that they should win. So I like the Roosters to get over the line and win this game. The total is 49.5 and make a fair total 48.5. This game comes down to the Roosters scoring if it goes over or not. Roosters are going to have to score mid to high 30s in order to get this game to go over, as I don't think the Cowboys have that many points in them, particularly with the Roosters defense dramatically improving over recent times. Also, Roosters are one of the best first half teams in terms of points conceded, and the Cowboys concede the second most points in first half. Roosters should lead this game at halftime, so they're going to be in a winnable position, and then it's just a matter of them going on with it at home in the second half, which in that situation, they should be able to. And the final game, Sunday night, in Sydney, the Eels at home against the Gold Coast Titans. Parramatta off the bye. Titans off. See, a win that would have given them plenty of confidence coming through that game against the Seagulls. That was just their 4th win of the year. The opening odds for this game were $1.91 each, so the bookmakers couldn't separate them. The total is 49.5. The Eels have a good record against the Titans. They've won 5 of the past 7, though the Titans have covered the past 5 versus Eels, and the Eels have won the last 5 at home versus the Titans. Now, this is a game where I would have really loved to see the Eels be $1.60, $1.70, and then could go with the Titans off that win last week. But at the current odds, I think there's been a bit of overreaction from their win last week. But also you have to factor in there's no Dylan Brown or Mitch Moses for the Eels this week, which is really, really concerning. So how I'm potentially looking at playing this game is for it to be a close matchup. The past 5 meetings have been decided by 1 to 8 points. Last season, they just met once and the Titans won by 8 as $1.35 favourites. The year prior, the Eels won the second game by 1 point and the Titans won the first game in Brisbane by 2 points. And then there was 6 and 4 point margins in 2022. So it's historically been very close. Titans won by 20 points last week, and that broke a 3-game losing streak. But in fairness, the losses were against the Raiders, Storm, and then Broncos had their best performance in some time against them. So I don't think the Titans are traveling too badly when you just look at their last month or so. And then for the Eels, the Mitch Moses loss is definitely really significant. And they've also only won the 4 games overall on the season after losing their 4 games to start the season. They've lost their last 2 against the Bulldogs and Panthers. I think the Titans can win this game. If I was tipping who I think is going to win, I'd go the Titans, even though they are on the road. I'll just back them in with the momentum from last week. But it's a game where right now I'm not sure if I even want to bet into this game. You don't have to bet into every single game on the weekend. You can pick and choose where you think the best spots are. And this is a game that I don't have a great deal of interest in from a betting perspective. So I'll make a decision closer to game time. The total is 49.5. 5 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone over the total. The Eels, 5 of their last 6 games have gone under the total. And for the Titans, 2 of their last 3 have gone under, but they've been a bit over-under throughout the season, and it's largely depended on how many points their opposition has scored as to whether that game's gone over. Generally, the Titans find 16 to 24 points in each game. That's also why I think this game's going to be close. I think both teams will score around the 18 to 20 point mark, and also I'd lean towards it going under the total right up there at the 49.5. I was expecting this total to be more in the mid 40s, not closer to 50. So we'll see, determining which players back up and that kind of thing, particularly for the Titans. If they are all backing up in Tino and also Mo Fotuaika, who right now they're both listed on the bench for the Titans. We'll see what happens there. There's a lot to play out between now and when this game is played. But right now, we'll tip the Titans and lean towards the under 49.5. So that's currently how I'm looking at playing round number 16 of the NRL season. You see everything I'm betting and follow those selections. I do all the research for you in the Best Bets membership. And also, if you're tired at looking at games and just thinking, I'm not sure who's going to win this, or I don't know what I want to bet on, or you're just tired of going on your gut feeling of how these teams are playing, definitely use the bet finders, use the statistics to analyze the games and use that information, as it'll make sure that the decisions you're making with the bets that you're putting on. And then tonight in the State of Origin over in Perth, Game 2, Queensland versus New South Wales lead the series 1-0 after winning Game 1 18-6. They scored 4 tries to 1 and led 14-2 at halftime. It was a game where New South Wales could have won this by a fair bit more, to be fair. They were without Brian Toll for a 10-minute period. That was when Xavier Coates scored the only try for Queensland, and they also got their penalty goal during that period. New South Wales just dominated the meters battle. They were plus 330 run meters, plus 120 post contact, broke 49 tackles as well. So Queensland missed 49 tackles, and they also had 27 ineffective tackles. Huge differences between the stats for both teams. It also went back through last year's meetings. Those numbers have held up. New South Wales have dominated run meters, dominated post contact. Queensland are missing a lot of tackles. Those areas need to be dramatically improved. And the issue I have with Queensland going into this game, there's no Daly Cherry Evans, which don't really have an issue with based off current form. They bring Tom Dearden in. The problem that it creates, though, is Queensland's kicking game is severely going to be tested here. They don't have a go-to play kicker who can control the game, particularly if Queensland are leading this game, and then you can turn to the halfback and they can kick you to victory. They can constantly pin the opposition down into the 20-meter zone and make it very difficult for them to get good field position. Queensland don't have that. Dearden and Monster are both second-choice kickers in their club teams, and also Harry Grant, who's playing dummy half, isn't like a common kicker. He'll have 2 kicks a game kind of thing, but nothing to have a major impact on the kicking game. Whereas on the other side of the field, you have Nathan Cleary, who can control this game with his kicking, particularly with this game being at Optus Stadium, so they're playing on an AFL field. That creates different dimensions in terms of where the grandstands are in relation to the sidelines compared to a typical NRL field. So the kicking game is even more important, to be precise. And there is rain predicted throughout the day over in Perth and through this game. It's expected to be around 25 to 30% chance of rain right throughout the day. So there's a good chance this game is rain affected, which also plays into the hands of the kicking game being more important. Then when you factor in New South Wales having the strength of the kicking game, even though they're without Mitch Moses. If Moses was in the team, then it'd be a huge advantage for New South Wales, but they don't lose a great deal with Luai coming in, and then you have the combination of Cleary and Luai both together. So New South Wales lose too much from that perspective. But with that kicking game, and also New South Wales dominating the meters battle in the middle of the field, like Queensland's forwards need to step up dramatically. Don't know if I fully agree with Carrigan and Nanai starting on the bench in this game. I think that also exposes Queensland early a little bit. Like game 1, Queensland gave away some dumb penalties early, which put them on the back foot. They absolutely can't afford to do that in this game, that's for sure. I don't think they will. But if it does eventuate, then it's going to make it even tougher for them. But I think they're still going to struggle in that first 20 to 30 minutes here in the middle of the field, and New South Wales can get on top, and then they should be able to control the game. So I do expect New South Wales to win. They're favourites for the game. Like over the years, like betting on State of Origin, I've made a lot of money in finding really good situations of backing the loser of game 1 and backing them to win game 2, or finding a bet around that type of angle. This is a game I just don't think fully fits like that situation. I think there's just too much difference between the two sides from a lineup perspective. There's a lot of Queensland players in this team who aren't in great form either. They have some really talented outside backs who are very good try scorers, but they've just been absolutely shut down by this blue side. New South Wales aren't missing tackles. The last 4 State of Origin games have only scored 2 tries, whilst New South Wales have had 13 players on the field. And they can't rely on sin bins and send-offs to get over the line in this game. And just, I don't know if Queensland have enough points in them to be able to win, particularly without good field position. If Queensland are to win this game, if you want to back them, you're probably going to need them to make some really good 40, 50, 60 meter plays, break the lines, multiple offloads and score tries from that kind of situation, because outside of that, they're not going to be in good enough field position unless New South Wales make a lot of mistakes, which is probably unlikely. Like State of Origin, there's generally not a huge amount of errors. That Queensland are going to struggle to get good field position, get multiple plays right down on the Blues try line, which they could turn into points. I think a lot of the time they're going to be getting to the 4th and 5th tackle 40, 30 meters away from the line, particularly with that kicking game differential, like with Toll and Lomax and Edwards in that back 3 for New South Wales. If Munsters and Dearden's kicking game isn't good and you have 2 of the best kick returners, particularly in Toll, he's like the number 1. I'd be surprised if Queensland kicked to his side too often. Then New South Wales is going to be starting their sets 30, 40, the 30 or 40 meter line, and then be going into Queensland's halves with their 3rd, 4th, 5th plays. And Queensland is going to need penalties or going to need line breaks to be able to bring back that field position. So it's up to their forwards to step up to even that playing field and give their backs a chance. Right now, I'm just struggling to see it off what we've seen over the past 4 games in particular. Queensland also struggle to score early on in games. And if they are trailing here, like they're going to need, it's most likely scenarios they're going to need to make a comeback win in order to win this game. So I might see a fairly close game, but I do expect the New South Wales side to get over the line. Obviously, it'd be awesome to see a game 3. Personally, I don't really have a side, as I'd rather Queensland or I'd rather New South Wales win games in terms of watching it from a fan's perspective, and I really keep that out of my betting. Personally, I care more about the clubs and following a certain team right throughout a season as opposed to the State of Origin series. That's just me personally. Over the years, I've really started to look at sport a lot more as how can I make money betting on these teams, and you really need to avoid being loyal to specific teams and backing them every week if you want to make money. Like, yes, you can capture teams at a good time and really ride the wave with them. There's nothing wrong with doing that, like when they're in really good form, or avoid teams when they're struggling. But in general, like you don't want to be so loyal to teams or to certain players that you just back them in every situation if you want to make money at the same time. That being said, hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully gave you some insights into the games this weekend. Posted further previews of the Origin, and we'll be posting previews of the upcoming games as well, going more in depth, looking at the stats, breaking it down in the best bets, which you can access through the description, where I do all the research for you and give you everything you need to make money betting on the NRL. Stay tuned for the try score video. It'll be posted tomorrow, so Thursday, where we'll go through the try scorers for this weekend.